I have already told you, we have our postponed lecture on the search methodology. So for that, we have with us Dr. Saurabh Srivastava. He is the Chief Scientific Officer at Vidcare Innovation Private Limited, and he has over 15 years of research experience in the area of microfluidics, immunoassay development, and biosensor, working with notable research groups both in India and Europe. And his specialization in biosensor-based detection for tuberculosis biomarkers. He worked during his PhD, and he has experience in working for molecular bioengineering. So, with very brief introduction on behalf of Srishti and Honeybee Network, I once again welcome you, Dr. Saurabh. Over to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mega, for your kind introduction. So today we will be discussing about research methodology. We aim to learn today the basic concept of research, that is both scientific and social research. We'll also learn about the stages in research, and we'll try to develop an aptitude and appreciation for research. So, a slide. Yeah. So during this talk, I will basically talk you through what exactly research is, followed by the way and conditions for conducting research. We'll then talk about different steps involved in research, like how to identify a problem, how to review available literature and data, then problem formulation, writing research proposals, deciding the methodology, data collection, processing, then analysis and evaluation, followed by the interpretation and report writing. Now, at some point, you all must have heard that this quote from Plato, who was an ancient Greek philosopher, that curiosity is the mother of invention. It's the curiosity or the desire to know something that fuels or forces or motivates a person to make some effort to find or search or discover or say innovate something new. This curiosity can be in terms of questions like why or what or how, and um basically it was the curiosity of knowing the reason why the apple falls on the ground. This was the reason or the curiosity because of which Isaac Newton was able to invent the law of gravity. Now, similar to this curiosity, there is another fuel, let's say fuel, that can also drive innovation, and that is necessity. So this is also a very famous proverb that is very relevant in the current or modern scenario, modern world research scenario. It means that the primary driving force for most of new invention is need. That is, when the need or requirement for something becomes uh, uh, urgent, you are forced to find a way of getting or achieving it. Like in the current pandemic scenario, when COVID-19 has become from bad to worse, uh, we found ourselves short of basic medical facilities and equipment, like such as masks, gloves, or oxygen concentrators, PP kits, medicines, vaccines, and so on. So when these kind of necessities arise, then every capable mind across the globe started searching for solutions to the problem. Hence, we came up with vaccines and other things got invented due to this need of the hour. Now, before we start digging about research, let's first understand some basic terminology or concept that is often used in research. So, let's take data. So, what exactly is data? Data is the information that is generated or collected as a part of the research. Data can be primary or secondary. Now, what is primary data? So primary data is the first hand information that can be collected during a research study, while the secondary data refers to any information or data that can be collected or that has been collected or already existed. So basically, everything that you can find fresh, every new data that you can find fresh, that is classified under primary data, whereas all the data that already exists somewhere in literature or anything, that is secondary data. Now, to give an example of secondary data, say for example, the census data. When you are using certain part of the census data to give more information about the research setting, or respondent that are the part of your research study, then this data can be classified as secondary data. Now, I use the term respondent. So what respondent mean? Respondents are people from whom the data is collected during a research study. And then one more thing is analysis. So analysis is the process of giving meaning to the collected data. Now that we know the basic terminology used in research, now let's see what exactly research is. So, research basically is a studious inquiry or examination, especially investigation or experimentation aimed at the discovery and interpretation of facts and or practical application of such new or revised theories or laws. So, what research is? Research is basically search for knowledge or a systematic effort to gain new insight, to know something new that is either not there or a new envelope has to be removed. Now, research can be an original contribution to the existing knowledge towards advancement, and this could be achieved through studies, observations, comparisons, or for that matter, new experiments. So, in layman term, if you want to understand what the basic research is, then research is defining and redefining problems, or making hypotheses, or collecting, obtaining, or evaluating data and reaching conclusions. And then finally, the conclusion that you obtain, then finally evaluating that conclusion whether it fits your original formulated hypothesis with which you started the work. Now, based on the above definition of research, research is a well planned activity and it involves three tasks. So, the first task is collection of data. So, this collection of data, it can be primary, it can be secondary, or it can be both. Then, second is analysis and interpretation of this collected data. Now, the data that you collected, you have to analyze the data and then you have to interpret. You have to make sense of that data. That uh, is it in the positive direction? Does it make any sense to what the original question was? Now, the third point is comparing this newly interpreted or newly acquired data to the existing data. So now you are comparing the data that you found with the existing data, and you will see if there is any advancement that has been made. Now, comparison of this newly acquired data is done because of three reasons, three main reasons. Either you want to support an existing or already known information, or uh, you will do it either to challenge an existing or already known data, or you will do it to provide new insight to already existing or known data. this means that research can be conducted on any topic as long as the following few conditions are met. Now, what are these conditions? Just a moment. So, the conditions is that the research process can be a well planned and it can be conducted systematically. The second condition is collection of primary or secondary data is possible. So it should not be something where you cannot get data. You cannot get the primary data or you cannot get the secondary data. So basically, primary or secondary data collection should be possible. Then the collected data can be analyzed and can be interpreted as well. And then finally, the fourth point, that this tends to help in discovering new knowledge that can be compared with already available information. Now, let's understand this with an example. Suppose you want to find out what are the possible treatment that can be applied to COVID-19 patients. Now, first, what you will check? First, we'll check if the research process can be done systematically and can be planned nicely. So, then is the data collection possible, both primary and secondary? So, yes, that is also possible. Can the data be analyzed and interpreted? Yes, it can be analyzed and it can also be interpreted. Then will this lead to a new discovery? Obviously, this will lead to a new discovery because we are trying to find out a possible treatment method for COVID-19. So since all the conditions are met, so now this can be a research question. Now let's take a social example. So yeah, let's take a social question where we want to know the reason due to which King Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated, or rather Prithviraj Chauhan defeated the invading army of Muhammad Ghori. So we all know that he defeated him like 15, 16 times. So let's see if this can be a research question. So in principle, the reason why Prithviraj Chauhan defeated the invading Muhammad Ghori's army is not a research question. Why? Because no primary data will be available. And why no primary data will be available? Because all those people are already long dead. So no primary data is available. Only secondary info can be achieved from books, stories, and magazines. Hence, you will not be able to get new insights or discoveries in this case. And hence, it's not a good research question. But to make it a research question, what we can do is we can tweak this problem a little bit, and then we'll try to see if this becomes a possible research question. So what we can do is, if we tweak the topic a little bit, then it will work probably. Like, what were the reasons why Muhammad Ghori got defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan, according to 3 generations of people that are living. So basically what we did was we changed this research question, and the subject or the respondents in this question, we changed it to 3 generation of people that are living at present. So now it is possible to get the primary data, and hence it becomes a good research question. Now, digging further, as we have seen that research can be classified into 2 classes, that is social research and scientific research. That is clearly evident from the above 2 examples. So basically social research is where we study about systematic methods of discovering new facts, or for that matter, verifying old facts, their sequences, then interrelationship, casual explanations, or natural laws which govern them. So that is something that is covered in scientific research, whereas social research is based on logic or empirical observation. Uh, yeah, empirical observations and historical facts and societal problems. Now, while this scientific research, it can be further classified into two things, that is fundamental research and applied research. So a research where we study about a systematic way of gathering data or harnessing curiosity. These types of research provide scientific informations and theories for the explanation of nature and the property of the world. So it can be uh, basically clubbed into fundamental research, whereas applied research is more towards application. So if you are doing some research which can provide you with some new product or new applications of existing technology, so that is classified under applied research. Now, research usually involves a series of 9 steps. So those steps are problem identification, then review of literature, problem formulation, then deciding the methodology, how you will do it, then writing a research proposal, then sixth one is sample collection and data collection, processing and analysis of data, evaluating and validating of the results that you got, and then interpretation, and finally report writing. So these are the 9 steps that are involved in research. We'll see these steps in more detail in next slide. So the first step is problem identification. What you do, identify the problem. The first step in this process is to identify a problem or develop a research question. The research problem may be something that is the thrust area as per the government agencies like ICMR and others, DBT, then DST. They have thrust areas. Thrust areas is basically research areas or the hot or burning topics. So all research agencies or government agencies, they come up with thrust area for the present or future years, and research can be based on those research problems which they have identified, or you can also identify a problem on your own that you see around you, that this and this are particular problem, like for example thyroid problem, or say cancer problem. So it's liver cancer problem that it is very difficult to detect, and by the time people detect it, it's already too late. So there are many problems that can be identified. So it can be as per the government agencies, or some knowledge or information that is needed to tackle a medical or a social situation, or the desire to identify something that is new or that has good or crucial application. So basically, uh, this is the whole and soul of problem identification. Now this problem identification will depend upon few things, like for example your interest. You will only identify a problem in an area in which you are interested, because if you are identifying a problem in which you are not interested or least interested, then you will not be the right person to do that kind of research, and you will have to do a lot of literature study and understanding the topic before you can start working on that kind of research question. Then before identifying a problem, you should also check that if there is some literature available on it, primary data, secondary data, these things are available on it. Then the next thing that you have to keep in mind while identifying a problem is feasibility or possibility in terms of resources and respondents. So if it is a scientific problem, then you have to look for resources. Say for example, you said that okay, I want to make a biosensor for detection of pesticides. Now in India, it's not really possible to get hold of all the pesticides which are banned. So The resources in this case are pesticides, which are your primary target, and it is very difficult to get. So getting the resources is not possible. So then you cannot take this as a problem. Then in case of respondents, say for example, you want to make a study where you compare people from north and south. So you can easily go to North India and you can find people from north, so you can take them as a respondent. Plus you can go to South India and you can also find people from south, so you can easily make a comparison between those people. So here your resources are, here your respondents are easily available. Now after that, the next is ethical issues. So basically there are ethical issues where, say for example, if you want to do a study which involves a lot of mouse as model organisms, and in that study you will be slaughtering a lot of mouse for your research. So you have to get a ethical approval, or you have to see if it is possible. If you take this as a problem, then will it be possible for you to get a ethical approval for this problem or not? So that is also a very important factor that you have to consider before identifying a problem. And the last and the final thing before you identify a problem is originality. So if a work that has already been done, there is no point making that as a problem unless and until you are doing it to add something new. I mean, um, doing a research on a topic that has already been done is pointless. So that will also not be a good problem. Now that the problem is identified, one must learn more about the topic. So now you know what your problem statement is. So you must learn more about the problem, and that thing you can do in review of literature. So to do this, the researcher must study the literature and previous work that has been done on that topic. This kind of activity, it helps the researcher to understand the knowledge gap, uh, method, how previous studies were conducted, and what were the conclusions of those previous studies. Literature review also helps a lot in designing your future experiments, your methods that are required to tackle the problem that you have identified in the previous slide. Now, from where you can do this review of literature, so basically for reviewing or for review of literature, you can look up to journals, scientific journals, scientific reports. You can look up to dissertation thesis, master thesis, bachelor thesis, PhD thesis, government reports, then any other reports by other organizations like World Health Organizations and things like that. Then you can also get materials from magazines, periodicals, conference and seminar, uh, papers, and then books, and then also audiovisual material, like mostly you nowadays people look at YouTube for these kind of things. So basically what is important from this review of literature is that you have to try to analyze and evaluate what you have read. So any information that you get, you have to critically analyze it to see if there is a gap or not. If there is a knowledge gap, then that is the piece of information that you need, and you need to fill it with your research. Okay. Now the third step is did I miss something? Yeah. The third step is basically problem formulation. So actually, I missed a slide here. So problem formulation, what you do many a times, the initial problem that you identified in the beginning, on the first step, the initial problem that you identified, after doing the review of literature, you suddenly come to know, or you suddenly realize that the problem that you identified in the first step appears to be either it's very large or vague, or maybe it's out of scope. In this step, in this problem formulation step, the step 3, a researcher basically revisits the problem and narrows the scope of his study. So basically here he finally defines, or finally um, comes up with the final research question that he would be doing research on. Now, the next step is deciding the methodology. So there are aspects, um, two aspects in developing the methodology. The first is deciding the orientation of your research. Now, what does this mean? This means that deciding if the present research needs uh, qualitative or quantitative methodology, or even a mix of both this method, that is the qualitative methodology and the qualitative methodology, or a mixture of both. This discussion would largely be based on the focus of your research, the objectives, and the hypothesis. It it is it is necessary to remember that you would have to read extensively to determine the method or methodology more suited for the topic that you are working on, that you are researching on. Now, deciding the appropriate sampling design is the second aspect, which involves deciding the population to whom you will ask questions in case of social research problem, or collect data from. Uh, and then it will also cover what will be your tools for this data collection. Now, I talked about qualitative and quantitative and mixed research. So what is quantitative research? Quantitative research is something that investigates what, where, and when of decision making. So if there is a question where what is there, where is there, or when is there, so that is classified in quantitative research. Now, quantitative research is also numerical, non-disruptive. It applies statistic or mathematics, and it uses a lot of numbers. So basically the thing that you can quantify, so it involves a lot of maths. Now, this quantitative research is an interactive process where evidences are evaluated. So if you get evidences for any kind of research, then in quantitative research that is evaluated, and um, supporting hypothesis is made from that. Now, result in quantitative research is often presented in forms of tables, graphs, and um, they are very conclusive. So from these tables and graphs, you can easily analyze and you can conclude your results. Now, what is qualitative research? So, qualitative research basically investigates the why and how of decision making. Why so and so is this, or how this and this is done. So, that is qualitative research. It is basically non numerical, disruptive, and it applies reasoning and often uses words. So, basically, you use a lot of argument in this. Now, qualitative research aims to get the meaning, the feeling, and describe the situation. And the data that is obtained in qualitative research cannot be graphed. It's basically exploratory. So it cannot be graphed. Now, the third type is mixed research. So mixed research basically involves the mixing of both quantitative and qualitative method, or paradigm characteristic. So basically nature of data is mixing the variable, word, and images. So it's basically a cocktail of everything. So um, you will also use tables, graphs, and you will also use arguments. So arguments, hypothesis, and justifications. Okay. Now, uh, basically, if you can see this table that, or rather a small chart that I have in the presentation. So basically, it shows you how a method can be. So here in this method, interview. So interview can be of three types. So it can be structured. So you have a proper structure, everything, and you go and you do the interview according to that structure that you have made. Then semi-structured. So basically, in semi-structured, you basically take the interview as per the flow of the interview. So basically, you start with a basic structure, and then you let the flow decide what your questions will be. And unstructured is basically when you have nothing, no structure, no formulation at all. You basically go to a person and do one-on-one talking, and whatever information you can collect, you collect. So that is basically a unstructured type of interview. Now, uh, accounts, diaries, group interview, focus group, and document interrogation. So these are different kinds of uh, different kind of places from where you can get the data, from where you can collect the data. You can collect the data from accounts, data from accounts, or diaries. Then you can also do a group interview of people. So basically, say for example, if I'm coming up with a new device and I say that, okay, I'm making a device for thyroid, so how many people of you will be buying it for 300, how many will be buying for 400, how many are not going to pay more than 200, and things like that. So some basic questions about something that you can do in a group interview, where you want to see where the trend of the market is. Now, next you can do the interview in more focus group. So, in focus group, say for example, if you have a particular medical problem, then the focus group of that problem will be either a doctor that is working in on that particular disease, or it could be a patient who is suffering from that disease. And the last one here uh, is document interrogation. So basically, you are reading the document more analytically or more critically. So this everything is clubbed under qualitative research. Now, in mixed research, you will have questionnaires, observations. So observation could be structured, unstructured. Then participant observations, what the participants observed. So that can be there. Then the third one is and so this will be under mixed research, while in quantitative research it will be test, official statistics, or other numerical datas, and then image based methods, and so on. So that will be classified under quantitative research. Now, the fifth step is writing a research proposal. So first of all, why do you need a research proposal? Basically, research proposal is needed to clarify the key elements that are involved in the research project, such as the problem that you have narrowed, focused, uh, or narrowly focused, the rationale for the present study, or the research questions, objectives, or hypothesis, key concept that is involved, their operational definition, or the research design, the methodology that you have decided. So for these things, you need to have a research proposal. Now, to develop an initial work plan, and how you will go about doing that work plan or doing that research systematically, this is the second reason why a research proposal is required. Then the third reason is to access, or to already get a feeling or idea about the kind of resources, uh, that is including time or manpower that will be required to conduct a particular research study or the research study that you are envisioning in your mind. So for that also you need a research proposal. Then you also need the research proposal to provide sufficient information to the reader who is evaluating your study proposal to begin with, or to your professor, or maybe to your peer or your colleague, or anyone that basically it's the first piece of information that you can give to a person so that he can understand what exactly you want to do. Now, this research proposal also helps these readers or maybe your professors uh, or the funding agency to decide the merit of the study. And it also helps them to evaluate the proposed study. And in case of a funding agency, it also helps them to decide if they can give the sanction or budget and can approve the project. Now, uh, this research proposal is the main thing that will be required for getting a formal sanction or approval to conduct the study, followed by the funding. So first you will get the sanction or the approval, and then from the funding agency you will get the funds for conducting that particular research that you have in mind. Now, next is sample selection and data collection. So, sampling design basically refers to the process of selecting appropriate number of respondents uh, from a target population of the study. So, basically, you like the example that I took earlier, and that you have a study in mind with North Indians and South Indians into the picture. So, the thing is, you you have a big group North Indian and another big group South Indian. So you have to then select or sample out particular individual or persons or respondents from whom you will do this study from North India as well as from South India, because you cannot go and ask question to the whole of North India and to the whole of South India. So you have to select respondents or sample. You have to sample it. Now, uh, sampling design includes determining the sample size or the number of cases to be studied. So, what should be your sample size, or how many respondents that you will take, or how many respondents are you going to question during your data collection process is the sample size. Choosing a particular sample or choosing a particular sampling technique and estimation of the possible sampling error is an important, or say very crucial aspect of sampling design. So uh, obviously there will be, so what does this mean? So say for example, you selected a person from North India, and when you started interviewing him, you found that that person is from either from South India, or he is from Rajasthan, or he is from maybe Sikkim or something. So later on you found out that the person is not from South India, from North India. Basically he is a migrant from somewhere else. So that will be your sampling error. So you have to take into consideration these kind of errors before you do the sampling designing. Now, uh, the next thing is preparing the tools for that data collection. So this includes identifying the best tools for research. Now, the tools for data collection will also depend upon the nature of the study design and the characteristic of the sampling. Generally for collecting self-reported data from the respondent, one can use personal interview. So if you have to collect self-reported data, or say for example, like in the case of COVID, every state was coming out with numbers that we have this much infected today, we have this much infected tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So this is a self-reported data from all the states. So what the center has to do, center basically collected these data from the respondents using one-on-one conversation, or rather personal interview. So personal interview method, or it can also be done with using a questionnaire method. So you can also say, for example, now you are making a device for thyroid and you want to know things which thyroid patients suffer. So you will make a questionnaire with all the questions that you want to know the answers of, and you will give it to thyroid patients. So um, they will fill out those questionnaires, and you will know your specific answer from the specific group of respondents, that is thyroid patients in this case. Now, field observations, if you want to understand or if you want to prepare the tool for data collection for field observation by researcher, so that can be uh, useful in studies involving processes. So say if there is a process, like for example, you want to interview some or your respondents in this case are some farmers. So uh, you want to understand the way how they cut the crops, say for example, if they are using a machine, if they are using a normal that tool, how is it called, hasia, that thing. So if you want to know that, so for that you have to do a field observation. So you'll go at the field, you will see what they are using, you'll talk to them, you'll understand. So basically you will do that field work. Then for interview tools such as interview schedules and guides are used. So um, if you have decided to take this interview, you will use interview schedules, guides, and these kind of things. Now, developing the tools or testing the tools, or once the tools has been finalized, it is pre-tested or it is pilot tested on a similar sample for checking its appropriateness or clarity of content, including the language used to frame the questions in terms of social question. So basically, once you have decided all the tools, all your tools are decided, then you uh, test the tools, or you run a pilot, or um, basically you see, in case of scientific research, you do small experiments to quickly check a small hypothesis. And in case of social research, you check the questionnaires, the interview that you have, the structure of the interview that you have made. So you check that, you check the language, you try to understand that if you have not used any jargons or big terms that normal people will not be able to understand. So basically this whole testing and pre-testing is done, and based on this, the result of the pre-test tool, the tool that you designed can be revised or it can be modified, and then it can be finalized. Now, the next step here would be uh, collection of data. So collection of data requires a great deal of time. The data collection can take place in the field or in lab, depending on the requirement of the research question. So if it is a scientific question or scientific research problem, then the data collection will be done through experiments and it will be done in the lab. Whereas if it is a social question, or it is a qualitative type of question, research question, then the research work will be done in the field. So where in the field does not mean agricultural field. In the field, it means that open, you go out, you meet people, you interview people, talk to people. So that is in field. So uh, so basically, yeah, in social research, data collection usually takes place in the field, while in scientific, it takes place into the lab. Now, processing and analysis of data. So, as I said in the beginning, the process of giving meaning to collected data is called data analysis. In order to do it, the raw data that you obtain from your experiments in scientific research or your interviews and field work in social research has to be processed first. Now, what is the meaning of process? So in say social research, you uh, you got some interview that is conducted in really regional languages. So first you have to uh, let's say translate that interview that you got in regional language into the language in which the research uh, is getting performed. So basically research is getting performed in the language which most of the researchers understand. So most of the researchers either speak Hindi or English or Marathi or Gujarati. So that will be the research language that will be used while doing active research, whereas the documentation or report making or these things will be done in English. So by processing, I mean here that local language, the answers that you obtain from social research will be conducted to, say, for example, English, so that everyone can understand what interview was conducted and what were the answers that you got. Now, once the data has been processed, analysis can be done using the predetermined method. So, as we decided in the third, fourth step on method, so using that method, the analysis can be done. Now, this analysis in quantitative study can be done with the help of statistic or formulas, using tables and graphs and other things, while in qualitative study it can be done disruptly. So whereas in the third, in the if it's a mixed study, so both qualitatively and quantitatively it will be done, that is using graphs and explanation. Now, uh, next step is evaluation and validation. So um, evaluation of research is basically uh, accesses the effectiveness of the solution. So the solution or the service or the outcome, the result that you got, so basically it checks if the hypothesis that you made in the beginning, does your result support that hypothesis, or it differs from that hypothesis. So that is evaluation. Then evaluation also covers the analysis of the problem and difficulties arising in effective implementation of a program. So basically, this is relevant in social problems, that after your social research, you came up with some suggestions, or you came up with the result that, okay, so and so things should be done, and then things would get better. So uh, here, um, what are the difficulties or problems that will be arising when you try to implement the suggestions or the outcome of your research, that is also covered in evaluation. Then it also covers exploration of drawbacks, limitations of the proposed study. So basically, after everything is done, you say, for example, you say that, oh, I missed something, I should have also checked that. So that is the limitation. Or if you did say for example, in the case of vaccines, so for COVID-19 vaccines, after making all the vaccines and everything, they came to know that okay, this vaccine is not working in South African strain, or not working in some other strain. So that is the drawback or the limitation of the research question they had while when they started making the vaccine. So now what they will do is they will basically make new hypothesis, they will improvise some steps or protocol, and then try to make the proposed study sustainable. So they will try to make some new vaccines that will cover those strains as well. Now, I think so the last step that is in research project is basically interpretation and report writing. So uh, in report writing, you basically cover all the things. So you cover the title, you uh, the terms, the references that you have used. Then you first introduce the topic, what exactly the topic is that you want to do research on. Then after that, you talk about the review of literature. So sometimes review of literature is also clubbed in introduction. So basically, then you step by step tell your reader that these are the information that was available in the literature, or that was already known to us. And by doing this kind of active research, these are, you will list the questions or research problem that you have in mind in the end. So basically then you will cross reference and say that okay, these were the things that were already known about this particular topic, and now these are the things that we want to find out, or we want to research on to get answers to these particular questions. After that, you will talk about the material that you will use, the procedure and the methodology, how you will be doing the experiments, or how will you be doing the research or conduct a survey or things like that. So that will be covered in methodology. After that, you will list the results, what are the results you find after the survey or after the experimentations. All the result that you obtained will be there. Followed by the result, there will be a discussion. So basically you will discuss the result, you will uh, um, interpret the result, you will compare the result with previous results. So that will be covered in discussion. And finally you will conclude. So you will what according to you was the outcome of your research, what you had in the mind in the beginning, that you wanted to do research, and you will find this type of answer. So did you find that answers, or did you find something new, or did you find something else? What you found, what the findings that you had and the findings that were already there, what was the correlation? Was it completely on the similar track, or it was completely opposite to each other, or the previous finding were completely wrong, and things like that. So basically these things are covered in conclusion. And after the conclusion uh, will be references. So basically in references you will cover the uh, places from where you got all the informations in review of literature. Like for example, you use some research journals, you use some books, magazines, or some videos, or any source from which you have received or you have got some knowledge that you have used in this project, will go in the references or bibliography. So this is how the report is made. Now basically the skills that are required for research. So you should have a capacity to plan and complete a project independently. So initially people do not have, who are a fresh researcher. So in your internship you basically get a taste of what exactly research is, how exactly research is done, and then you should do a self analysis, that am I capable of planning and doing a project independently? Can I be a good researcher and things like that? Do Then you should have some writing skills. writing skills so that you can write a research proposal, you can write a research report, you can write report journals, you can write patents and so on. Then do you have the aptitude for analytical and critical thinking? After seeing something, some piece of information, some review of literature, are you able to critically analyze it? You are able to um, think. You can find niche, you can find gaps in it, knowledge gap. So that is another thing that is important. Then presentation and organization thing. So basically the research that you are doing, you should be able to present it in front of audience. You should be able to make them understand what exactly you are doing, why you are doing, how you are doing, because these are the things that help you get funding. Now, and the last but the most important thing is ability to stick to the deadline. So it's uh, a good researcher is a person who can stick to deadlines. It's not that he started some research and he started finding new different things, and he went on doing it forgetting about the deadline. So there is a deadline for completing a research. Say for example, you get 2 years for making a like for example in the COVID case. So all the people who are making vaccines, they had a deadline. They had to make the vaccines in 6 months or 8 months. So if they started and without caring about the deadline, if they kept on doing their research, probably we would have not got the vaccines yet. So it's very important to stick to deadlines. And mostly in the end, skills can always be learned, because whatever these things are, these 5 things, these are all skills, and skills can always be learned if you are motivated. So if you want to do research, if you are motivated to do research, you can learn anything. You can learn how to plan, how to um, do a project independently, how to do good research, or how to write papers, and how to write journals, or you can learn how to think critically, how to evaluate something critically. Then presentation things, and obviously these are organizational skills that you can easily learn, but you should be motivated. And with this, that's the presentation. So if you have any questions, I'm open to it. Anyone, any question? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
So my one question is about the collaboration or partner, like how to choose a research partner, or you say
Yeah.
how to choose a collaborator.
Okay. So say for example, if you are a person that uh, so I'll give an example of scientific research. So you have a research where say you have a COVID research. So you can make a device. You can make a device for detecting COVID very easily, right? But then you do not have the knowledge that a doctor has. So what you have to look for, what are the biomarkers? So basically what I'm trying to say here is, you have to look for a contrasting or complementary collaborator, something that you don't know but your collaborator know, and something that your collaborator doesn't know but you know. So that is the best combination to have a collaborator. So you should be expert in your field and he should be expert in his field to do a active research. And that project that you have taken, or that project that is on the table, should utilize the expertise of both the persons. That is you as well as your collaborator.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any more questions?